Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Espero que estén muy bien. Bienvenidos nuevamente a Cafecito con Masha. Estoy muy contenta y muy emocionada por la entrevista del día de hoy. Hoy tenemos a una gran celebridad del patinaje sobre hielo. Les recuerdo a todos que se suscriban a este canal, por favor, y que a través del super chat pueden interactuar con nosotros y hacerse notar en el chat. Así que para no dar más rodeos, vamos a darle la bienvenida al la gran celebridad y a nuestro gran amigo Scott Hamilton. Hi Scott, how are you?
I'm great. I am super good. How are you?
I'm so excited to have you here. And okay, I want to introduce you. I mean, everybody knows you, but for those who don't, I could introduce you as an Olympic champion, as a cancer survivor, but I can't just get enough of the presentation you do of yourself on your book and everywhere. So could you please do that introduction for us, please?
Oh, you mean the one about my personal ad? That
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I had to write like a dating profile and be totally honest, it would be short, bald, half neutered, chemoed, radiated, surgically repaired, retired male figure skater of unknown ethnic origin, seeks a beautiful, intelligent woman for long walks, laughter, and an interest in my hobby for collecting life-threatening illness. That one?
That one, I just love
Okay.
it. I mean, I just can't say enough. You got it. You got it. So probably, well, I'm sure you won't remember this, but we met back in 2006. My first job on TV as a Olympic commentator was in Torino 2006,
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, of course.
and I met you there. So
Yes, I remember
here
that.
we are.
Yeah.
I was so excited because I grew up in figure skating watching you. So you always were one of my favorite skaters. And I remember your whole story and everything. So when I saw you in Torino, I was like the rookie on TV. And I saw you and I was like, oh my God, that's Scott Hamilton. I have to go and say hi.
I remember. I do, because I was like, "Oh, wow, a television entity from Mexico. This would be really fun." And just build skating and spread skating out and to really just expose it to everyone possible. I mean, it's kind of my job, ultimately, as an Olympian and as a someone who loves the industry. So yeah, it's a pleasure to talk to you then, and it's a pleasure to talk to you now.
I'm so happy to have you here on this interview. So let's start. I want to go way back from to your childhood. So you were adopted, and pretty soon your family discovered that you have some kind of illness. So what happened there? How was that?
Well, in your adopted child, there are no expectations, right? You don't know if they're going to be tall or short or big or small. You don't really know anything about that. So you just sort of, kind of go with it. And this picture is hilarious because it looks like five total strangers sitting on the fireplace stoop, right? So I had a childhood illness, and it put me in and out of hospitals for about 4 years, and they could never really come to um, the source of my illness or anything else. So it was one of those things where we just kept trying to uh, get to the right doctor to get the right diagnosis. And for a long time, you could see I was fed through a nose tube, and that was actually my first time on the ice. Was I was fed through a nose tube, and my whole thing once I started skating was all I cared about, all I ever wanted to be was an ice show comedian, which that video kind of alludes to. But it was it was I was this sick kid, right? And it was a 4 year adventure, and I wasn't really growing or developing. And then when I got on the ice, I realized that I could do something as well as the well kids. And then after a few weeks of lessons, I realized that I could do something as well as the best athletes in my grade. And I was kind of hooked. So as I skated, my health started to improve, and they didn't know at that time what was wrong with me. They just, whatever I was doing there didn't work, but skating worked. So I was just going to do more and more of that.
Wow. So how old were you when your parents realized there was something in you? Some
I guess I was around 4, in that year of between 4 and 5. They saw that I was showing some signs of stress and I wasn't growing properly. And so we went to the doctor, and the doctor told us that, you know, I'm not growing and it could be normal, it could be something, whatever. It's, you're looking at the early 1960s, I mean, it wasn't like bloodletting, or anything. There was healthcare, but it was they didn't know. They just didn't know exactly what was going on, or how to diagnose it. And so we started a small hospital, and then go to a bigger hospital, and then a bigger hospital, and then the biggest hospital. And
wow.
at the end, they just said, "We can't diagnose this. We don't know what's going on. Go home, live a normal life, and see what happens next." If they don't know what's wrong with me, they really can't treat me for
Yes.
anything. And so I went home, and to give my parents a morning off, I went to the rink. And going to the rink turned out to be the best thing I could have done, because my health started to improve, and it stayed that way for a long time.
Yeah, actually, that was my next question. So, how did you get from going in and out of the hospital to figure skating? How did that happen?
Oh, that's a really great question. I mean, because for everybody it's going to be different, right? And for me,
Yeah.
it was my father was a biology professor at Bowling Green State University. My mother was a school teacher too. She ended up becoming an associate professor at Bowling Green State University. But in 1967, they built a brand new skating rink at Bowling Green State University to have a hockey team that would, be an NCAA hockey team. And they wanted to teach classes to university kids. And they built this beautiful facility. It's very forward thinking. They had a full size arena. Then they had a curling sheet
Wow.
where they had 4 curling lanes. It was totally dedicated to curling. And then they had a little studio rink that was a really tiny, it was good for about 2 patches of compulsory figures, right? So it was a beautiful facility. And so on Saturday mornings from 8 a.m. to noon, they just learn to skate figure skating. And so again, my parents were exhausted from the hospital adventure, and
Of
they
course.
our family physician said, "Look, my daughters are involved in this new skating thing, and maybe that would be a great way for Scott to spend a morning to give you guys some time off." And so I went to the rink, and I was kind of like the odd kid there, because I was the sick kid and everybody else were well kids. And I just thought it was really fun and exciting to be in a situation where I was literally on equal footing with the well kids and the best athletes of my grade. And it didn't take me very long to catch up to all of them.
Wow, that's awesome. So, fast forwarding to 1980, in your first Olympics, you had the honor to bear the flag of the United States. So, how did that happen? I mean, in that precise moment, you were not like the top skater for United States. It happened after that. So, how did that happen for you?
It's crazy, because the team captains were Michael Botticelli, a pair skater, and Stacy Smith, an ice dancer. And they put all those skaters. You can see that's the 1980 Dream Team. And my goodness, it was really fun to just to be at the Olympics. And then what was really fun was um, I'm in the Olympic Village, and the team captains come to me, and they try to play a joke on me. They said, "Okay, now you've really done it. Now you've really done it. You've really done it this time." It's like, I didn't do anything wrong. I was like, I've been on my best behavior. And they go, "No, you've really done it this time." Well, the idea was that every team captain, they pitch someone they feel would be appropriate to carry the flag. And in that particular instance, they heard a lot of people saying, "Well, in speed skating, Eric Heiden's going to win all these medals, and be great to have him carry the flag." And they're like, about success. And then, well, we've got the hockey team, and Mike Eruzione, he's this great guy, and it's he should carry. And then well, this sport never gets any attention. They should carry the flag. And then they came to the figure skating side, and Michael was my roommate for like tours, and like really we were really close friends. And he said, well, what about if it wasn't about success? What if it was just about what it takes to get here? And he talked about my childhood illness. He talked about the loss of my mother to cancer. He talked about, the fact that I'd been this journeyman who'd come in last in competitions and had to work my way up. And he goes, what if that represented the team? And they all kind of went for it. It was a great sales job. And so I'm the third guy on a 3-man team, and I have no chance of medaling, and I'm the flag bearer, which is just sort of like, to this day, I go, what in the world just happened? And so from there, it was sort of like, I don't know, it was almost like a confirmation that things were starting to really roll for me. So I thought if I came in 8th at that Olympics, that I was, that would be the best result I've ever had. So that was my goal, was 8th place. And I ended up coming in 4th in the short and the
Wow.
long, and coming in 5th overall. So I was like, boy,
Oh
that's
my God.
beyond anything. And then a month later, we're in Dortmund, West Germany for the World Championships, and I came in 5th there as well. And it was kind of like this incredible, beyond anything I ever would have thought to happen. And then the top 3 guys all retired. Robin Cousins turned pro, Jan Hoffman went to medical school, and Charlie Tickner turned pro. And so all I had to do was wake up, and I'm ranked 2nd in the world. That's a pretty good cup of coffee, right? Yeah. So, so it was, what do I need to do in order to go like from being ranked 2nd to being ranked 1st? And it was really just about recognizing my weaknesses. It was, I was good in the freestyle, but I was much weaker in the compulsory figures. So I had to figure out, like, okay, get strong where you're weak, and then you'll be more competitive. And so I had to turn a hatred of compulsory figures into a passionate love for compulsory figures. And I mean, in just dedicating and liking them, and changing my attitude about that part of the competition, I was able to go from October of 1980 to
Mm.
March of 1984 without ever losing a competition. And to this day, that it just seems remarkable and surreal, because I I mean, I never really intended, that wasn't a goal. That was just sort of a byproduct of working hard, and showing up every day, and getting strong where I'm weak, and really trying to be aware of where I could get better, and constantly striving. It was kind of like a combination of being humble and hungry.
Wow.
When you're
Yeah.
humble and hungry,
Yeah.
good things happen, right? And I was talking to Nathan Chen about that. During COVID, the lockdown, we had
Yeah.
an interview, and I just said, it's just, if we're humble and hungry, good things happen, right? We can
Yes.
always get better. We can always get better. And we're gonna work hard, and we're gonna show up every day, and we're gonna commit, and then really good things, like the best possible result, can happen.
Yes, like you said, you were undefeated for 4 years, and then you went to the 1984 Olympics, and you got the gold. So I want to ask you, which Olympic experience felt better for you? I mean, in the 80s, like you said, you didn't have a chance to win, but you achieved something you didn't dream of. And then in 84, you won the gold. So how was that experience for you?
They were totally different. The first Olympics, you're an Olympian. I get to wear the jacket, and I'll be an Olympian for the rest of my life. And this is the greatest thrill. And it's in Lake Placid, and I'm in front of a home crowd. And it was just idyllic. It couldn't have been better. It was absolutely awesome. And then 4 years later, now I'm expected to win. I haven't lost a competition in 3 years, 3.5 years. The media was saying if I didn't win, then it was a loss, basically, that I was 100% a lock. And then, I had to go in with a strategy that was sound. And so by the time I stood in position right there for my long program, I had basically a 5-place lead.
Mhm.
So I had to be 5th in the long program to other people winning, in order to fall from that first place thing. So I just had to skate well enough to be in the top 2 or 3. And I figured if I was top 3 in figures, top 3 in short, top 3 in long, I could not lose.
Yeah.
And that was my strategy going in. So I won the figures. And from there on, it was like I just had to stay alive and stay vertical in order to win the gold medal.
So I saw the interview they had with you after the long program. I remember you have like one mistake or something. You did, I think, a single flip or something, and you were not thrilled about the mistake, but you were saying, "I hope this is enough for me to win." So were you happy with your performance or not so much?
Oh no, I hated my performance. I mean, I didn't hate it. That's an overstep. I was disappointed that I didn't skate the performance of my life. Um, Brian Orser was lights out in the short and long. He edged me just by a little bit in the short, and then he destroyed me in the long program. And
Yeah.
so for the media, it was really like, for them, it just felt, why didn't Brian win? He won the long program. And it was because he was like 7th or 8th in figures. And so that was too steep a hill to climb. And I was up there and I was able to maintain. So, I went in with a strategy. I stuck to that strategy and I was able to come away with a victory. I skated a really the best figures I could have skated. My loop was like one line. It was like one line. It was like I could not have put down a better figure than that back change loop. And then when I look at that, I mean, I beat reputably the best figures male skater that ever lived, in
Yes.
Jean-Christophe Simon. So it was like that was a victory in itself. And then short program, I skated clean. I had a little bobble on the camel spin, but I skated clean, did all my jumps. And then in the long program, I struggled on the triple flip and triple sow at the end. But by then my training had started to go on to the other side, and I was lights out all the way until the day of the long program, and I just started to get to the other side, and I just wasn't 100%. So I didn't skate. It wasn't like I succumbed to the atmosphere. Once I got past triple Lutz, I felt great. That was the first jump in the program. It was just the triple flip timing, when you pop, I mean, you're a skater, when the timing is just a little bit off, your body reacts, right? And so there was that. And then by the time I got to triple sow, I was having a hard time breathing because I had a really bad cold. The whole right side of my head was just full. And when you're at the Olympics, you can't take any medication, right? Yeah, it's like doping. So, right. So I skated the program that I needed to skate. And I'll say this, throughout my entire life, it's been the less thans that allowed for really good things to happen later on. So yeah, that long program was less than I could have performed, but it allowed for something good to happen later on. So, like Brian Orser destroyed me in the long program. That's great. I love Brian. He and I were really good, close friends. A month later, I'm in Canada competing against him on home ice to try to win my 4th world championship. And I stayed with my strategy. I was first in the figures again. And then I was first in the short program this time. And then Brian beat me in the long. So I won my 4th world championship. He was second. And it was just sort of a validation of the Olympics, for all my naysayers, the Olympics. And then I went into my professional career with a little chip on my shoulder. Like I had to prove that I was the right guy for that title. And so I went into my professional career with all this like ambition and all this like hunger, and I worked really hard to build a professional career. And I thought if I could skate 2 to 4 years, maybe I could put enough money away in order to kind of build something in my life, And so I was really very, very frugal, and I was very attentive to like spending money and all those things. And I lived simply. I worked every week all year. I just kept working because I didn't think it was going to last very long. And after 2 years of being with the Ice Capades, they went through a sale where new owners came in, and they had their own new vision where they just really didn't want to um, have any male skaters. And so
Why?
even though I never missed a show, never missed a press call, skated weeks of the show where I wasn't even under contract to be a good employee, the new owner didn't see a value in having a male star. And so they let me go. And so after 2 years, I was without a job. And
Oh my,
so IMG, International Management Group, came to me and they said, we'd like to get into the touring skating business. Will you help us build a tour? And I said, well, let me check my schedule. I had nothing, right?
free the whole day.
I had nothing. So I go, yeah, I'd love to help you build. So we built a show called Stars on Ice, and it still exists to this day. I did it for 15 years as a dedicated cast member. And then I guested. I came back and did some guest, performances for until 2004, and then it was time for me to hang up the blades and become a family man.
Wow, such a long story in figure skating. Well, actually, I wanted to talk about other stuff also. So, when you were so many years in Stars on Ice, and somewhere in the 90s, the illness struck back again.
Oh yeah, that was a different one. It
And
was
why?
cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, how did you find out that you had cancer?
Well, most men feel like, we're bulletproof, we can do all these things and, we're above. It's only wimps go to the doctor, right? And I knew I had some symptoms, some abdominal stuff but I thought it was just because I worked too hard.
Mhm.
Um, so I just sort of put it down, working too hard. Maybe I have an ulcer and, I'll just take some medicine for that or whatever, and it'll go away. And, I had other issues, but I just ignored them, right? And just kept working, working, work. I don't want to miss a day of work. I got to keep working. And so we were 50 cities into a 60 city tour. And I
Oh,
mean, we're in Peoria, Illinois. And I just decided we had a early show that night. I think we had a 5 o'clock show. It's a Sunday. And I go, I think I'm just going to go into the emergency room and just get some medication because I was having a hard time standing up straight.
you
It
were
just hurt.
skating.
I was skating, let me see, 3 solos, an opening, a group number, and a finale every night in Stars and Ice. So I was skating hard.
Yeah.
So we get to, I get to the emergency room. I tell them I got some abdominal pain. It might probably is an ulcer, and so they put me through a couple tests, and then they came back and they go, we just want to do this one more time. They put
Mhm.
me through the tests again. And the doctor just sat me down and he said, we found a mass. And I'm like, a mass? And I was like, wow, that's kind of strange. And he said, it's either benign, malignant, or something else. And I realized in that moment that I was being diagnosed with the same disease that killed my mother. And the fear was unbelievable.
Imagine.
It was, it was overwhelming. And it was kind of in that moment, I decided that I needed to be strong and courageous and brave, and I needed to fight this thing, and because I wanted to get my life back.
Yeah.
So from that show in Peoria, I did the show that night. I got in a tour bus and I went to Cleveland. They did a biopsy, and then they told me I had stage 3 cancer, and I had to have chemo and a big surgery. So for the
Wow.
next 4 months, I had these 5 days a week, 8-hour infusions, and then 16 days off, and then 5 days in a row of 8-hour infusions.
Mhm.
And I did that 4 times. And after 4 rounds of these 8-hour infusions, it's basically having a full-time job that week.
Mhm.
It's one of those 9 to 5, honestly, of chemo,
But not the nice
right?
ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had the big surgery. It was 38 staples, like that. And
Wow.
then after the surgery, I was cancer free, and they said I can start skating again. but I had to take it slow because of the incision.
Yes, of
You know,
course.
it's core, right? So I had to build all that back, and I had to build new kind of, there was a seam there now. The scar was preventing me from moving, so I had to break that down, and it took a while. But then I was back on the ice the very next year on tour, and that was crazy. That was hard, but and so then, you know, I was able to beat back the cancer and get back to life.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, you're such a positive guy. So, I want to know, how do you deal emotionally with an illness that you know is life-threatening? You lost your mother to cancer, and how do you do it and be at the same time so positive in your life and accomplishing so many things? I mean, you have your foundation, your skating academy, you work on TV as a commentator and analyst. And you have so many good things, and not so many people can be so positive about these kind of things. They, some people break down, and you are always smiling and so positive. So how do you deal emotionally with this?
You know, it's hard to say. I think one of the best examples of it that it kind of hit home was, you know, I read a Malcolm Gladwell book where basically he talked about David versus Goliath, I think was the name of the book. And he just talked about how when Hitler was trying to win World War II, he he decided he was going to bomb Great Britain, just bomb them till they surrendered, right?
Yeah.
And what they found was, you know, he thought he could instill such fear into Britain that they would just surrender, right? And what he found was the exact opposite thing happened. As soon as the sirens would go off, people would go underground, the bombs would go, and more people by the thousands survived than were destroyed by these bombs. And with each time they survived, they got more brave and more resilient, and they feared less because they survived so many times. And that really resonated with me because what is meant to defeat us, what's meant to diminish us, what's meant to bring us down, you know, it ends up giving us confidence and allowing us to know how strong we are and allowing us to let us understand how much we can endure. And so the opposite things takes place. It's not like the more things that are piled on you, the weaker you get. The more things that are piled on you, the stronger you get. And so, you know, as soon as you realize that you can survive this, oh, and you can survive that, and you can survive that, and you don't worry about things like, you know, you would in the past. I mean, the day I was diagnosed with cancer, I was scared to death, and then that fear just flipped, I mean, almost immediately into a sense of mission and clarity. And here I'm going to go after this thing with everything I've got, you know. And so there was a passion that came with all of it that just said, okay, you're going to be the best patient ever, and you're gonna be on time every day, and you're going to be coachable, and you're going to win this battle, and you're going to be better than you've ever been. So, you know, it's not a diminishing thing, suffering. In fact, in the Bible, in Romans, it says that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. And I kind of felt like I lived that, you know. It's suffering does its work, right? And suffering isn't a bad thing all the time. It's unpleasant, but it also strengthens you. And when you think about, you know, for example, a scar, a lot of people, some people would look at them as, well, it's a disfigurement. A scar is ugly.
Yeah.
I think scars are beautiful. Scars are reminders of what you can withstand and what you can endure, and how our bodies are incredibly resilient and powerful, right? So, I have like this saying that it's like our bodies are vulnerable to many things happening to them, but at the same time, phenomenally resilient, right? They're
Mhm.
phenomenally resilient, but ultimately they're temporary.
Yeah.
So how are we going to live? How are we going to live our days to be joyful and productive and in love? And how do we just take with incredible character and passion every day of every year to make them have value and not just throw our days away like Kleenex, it's like, it's not like that. It's like we live. And so many of my knockdowns have been reminders that my days are numbered and important. And so I just try to encourage other people. We got to live our days X, whatever that is. Live our days joyfully, live our days abundantly, live our days productively, live our days in service of others, live our days passionately. There's
Yeah.
so instead of all my goofiness diminishing me, it may have shortened. Like if I were to live without disease, maybe I live to 100. Maybe now I live to 90.
Yeah.
Who knows? It doesn't matter because maybe if I were to live without cancer, without brain tumors, I'd take things for granted, and my days wouldn't mean as much to me as they do. Right?
So it's like what you mean is that you have to embrace the good and the bad things and just live through it and just make it worth.
Well, allow the things that, I don't want to say bad things. I'd say allow the things that you wouldn't necessarily choose.
Yeah. Nice way
Let
to
them,
put it. Yeah.
right? Let them do their work.
Hmm.
Let it do the work. So like anytime that you fall down on the ice, you don't it's a good teacher, right? Because pretty soon you're sick of falling on the ice and you stand up, right? So you learn from failure. You can succeed, and from those times where things didn't work out the way you wanted them to, sometimes there's a song that Garth Brooks sang years ago, and it was, he thanks God for unanswered prayers. Sometimes it's maybe the things that we thought we wanted, maybe they weren't the best for us, and maybe the things that we don't want, maybe those are really good things. And so for me, I'm kind of this disgusting optimist, right? Where I I always find good in things. I'm not as much a warrior as I am a peacemaker. I'm not one of these guys that looks at things and says, "Oh, that's terrible." I look at things and I go, "Oh, let's see where this goes," right?
Yeah.
Like whenever I see people go through periods of suffering or struggle, I go, "You're getting moved." So
Hmm.
whatever was before, that was meant to be replaced with what you're going to do next, right? And so all of that it reveals in us a character, and I think that's why I love my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ so much, because I've learned that our lives mean something much more than we even realize, and that is in service of others, and that is in love, and that is in kindness, and that is in um, trying to make the world maybe just a little bit brighter.
This is so nice and such a good message. And sticking with this idea, I heard you somewhere in another interview saying that you feel like cancer was kind of a gift for you. Could you explain a little bit more this idea?
One more time, what you broke up
Okay,
just a
so
little.
you said somewhere that cancer was like a
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
best
gift
thing
for
that
you.
ever happened. Yeah, best thing that ever
Why?
happened to me.
Please explain us why cancer was the best thing ever happened to you.
All right, so I don't. It's such a weird thing. Um, you're going along and you're going along, and you're following your road of your life, and sometimes there's left turns, sometimes there's right turns, and sometimes there's fork in the roads. You go, oh, which way do I want to go? And for me, it was, I was allowing life to sweep me up and take me where it wanted me to go instead of allowing me to be in control of where my life was to go, right? So, I was an entertainer. I was doing Stars on Ice. I was traveling all over the world and doing shows. And, I thought that, doing these things was kind of my identity, right? Being an entertainer was who I was. And there was financial rewards to that. And there was all the accolades and the applause and all that. And I got so caught up in that's who I am that I kind of like allowed it to take me where it wanted me to go. So
Wow.
cancer interrupted all of that, right? And cancer allowed me to, I had to be still. I had to endure the chemotherapy. I had to endure the surgery. I had to allow my body to heal. But as I was allowing my body to heal, my mind was able to take stock of everything that was going on around me. And I realized that I allowed my conditions around me to, it was basically the best way I can say it. The tail was wagging the dog. All right.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So now when I had the
Wow.
opportunity to be still and the opportunity to be quiet and to self-reflect, I realized that I need to be in control, and I wasn't. And I needed to step away from everything that I was living at that time because I just felt it was a result of everything else.
Mhm.
And so I stepped away, and I just sort of spent time healing, being aware, trying to, just trying to fortify myself. And it was about 3 years to the day after I was diagnosed, I met a girl who would become my wife and the mother of my children. So
Wow.
without cancer, nothing that is in my life now would be in my life. And not only opportunities to serve, to share my story, to inspire other people to rise up above their afflictions. Um, just what I've learned about my faith and how, everything that I felt would separate me from quality life and God is forgiven and swept away, and now I can come forward in confidence. So for me, it's like cancer was, if I hadn't have had cancer, none of those things would have happened.
Yeah. Wow.
And who knows what would have been next. So I'm grateful for it. And I don't recommend it as a hobby or something. Hey, everybody go out and get cancer. I don't recommend it. But it was something that really gave me a lot.
Wow, that's so awesome. So, what would you say was the hardest moment for you in your life? I don't know if it was your mother or your own illness. What moment? What do you remember that was really difficult for you, and how did you get through it?
Ah, man, it's like pick one. It's like every single one has done its work, right? And when I did a TED talk, you showed a picture of it earlier,
Hmm.
and I did a TED talk in Nashville.
Yeah.
And I asked them, I go, what do you want me to talk about? And they go, talk about anything you want. And I go, come on, narrow it down at least a little bit. I give me a subject, give me something.
So
And they go,
many
no, no,
things
no,
to talk
you,
about.
you you need to figure that out. So all that was in my mind was suffering. And it's like, that's such a downer to talk about suffering. And I go, really? And so I looked up on TED, I go, suffering. Nobody had ever talked about suffering before. And it's the one thing all of us go through. All of
Yeah.
us. All of us. There's not a person in the world that doesn't go through some level of suffering, whether it be physical, emotional, intellectual, whatever it is,
Yeah.
spiritual. So I decided that I was going to talk about suffering. And so basically it goes like this. We're constantly being the fork in the road, right?
Mhm.
We're always coming to that fork in the road where we have to make decisions. Do I go this way or do I go this way? But it's not a left or right decision. The fork in the road is, do I want to go this way or do I want to go this way, right? And this way is a little harder, but this way, the view's better, right? When you're all done, And so, you have three choices. You can succumb, adapt, you can stay right where you are and just sort of
Mhm.
deal with, adapt to whatever you're going through, or you can evolve.
Yeah.
And so I just thought that was a good message because in each one, I found a way of growing. I found a way of learning. I found a way of being kind of richer for the experience.
Yeah.
Right. So, each one had its own identity. My childhood illness, I was the shortest kid in my class. I was the sick one. I was kind of like, not a, it was last one chosen on any kind of team game, that type of thing. And skating gave me a way forward. When I lost my mother, I had to wake up and understand that she saw and sacrificed so much for me that I needed to be that person that she thought I could be. And it was a wake up call. I miss her every day. I wish I never would have lost her, but I was able to get in touch with a part of me that she always wanted for me to be a part of, and so I learned from that. And then, all the times that I fell and lost, I figured out a way to rise up. And losing my job with the ice capades gave me stars on ice, and having cancer allowed me to realize, a new life and a life that I should have chosen for myself a long time before. And the first brain tumor ignited my faith, and the second brain tumor allowed me to understand just how strong and resilient I am. And the third brain tumor allowed me to understand that there's wisdom that comes from all of this. So, it's hard to pick which one was the most impactful, but I learned something, and I grew incredibly from each time I was knocked down.
Wow. So, there usually failure, people say failure is a bad thing. The word failure is commonly used as a negative thing, but not for you. So, I
No.
want to ask you, what is failure for you?
Failure is purely 100% information. That's it. If we can just look at failure as information and nothing more, oh my goodness, it's so liberating. Because so many of us, and me included until I learned this, I would carry every failure with me, and it just gets heavy. It's like you put your failure in a bag and you have to carry it around with you all the time, and it gets heavy, and it's not fun, right? It's like awful. And I have to keep looking at my failure and going, ooh, I failed, and it's so ugly and awful. And it's like, no, it's like, why did I fail? Well, let's my first nationals. I fell 5 times in a 3-minute program. I don't know how I had time to fall 5 times in a 3-minute program, but I did. And so I look back on that and I go, huh, what did I learn from that? Right? I
Mhm.
learned that I need to train harder, train better, be more prepared. So that can't happen. Okay. So you rise above it.
Yeah.
Another failure. I fail in relationships. What did I learn? Well, I needed to be more X or Y. Okay, if I fail in business, why did I fail in that business? Well, because I didn't take the necessary steps, or I was too attached to one thing to allow another thing to happen. Uh, Check. Like my little boy, my 12-year-old, he got into hockey, and he lost it's one of his first games, and it was just embarrassing because every time he got the puck, somebody take it away and they'd make him look bad and they'd score. And he got in the car and he was super upset. And he just said, I hated today. I hated it. And he had tears in his eyes. He's just a little boy. And I go, well, let's break it down. I go, what happened out there today? And he goes, man, they skate so much faster than me. I go, what does that tell you? And he said, that I need to work on my skating. I go, exactly. What else? He goes, every time I had the puck, they'd take it away. And I'd say, well, Max, that's yes, that's kind of the game. That's kind of how they play the game, right? And he
That's what
goes,
hockey's about.
right. And I go, what did that teach you? And he said, well, I got to work on my stick handling. And I go, what else? And he goes, oh, Dad, I want to get my shot up in the corner of the net where the goalie can't touch it. And I'm
No.
like, Max, that's fantastic. I go, can I ask you a question? He goes, sure. What would you have learned today if you had won the game? He looked at me and it's like, is that a trick question? I go, no, what would you have learned today? And he said, nothing. I go, exactly. So if we can look at failure as an opportunity to learn and grow, then it has no power over us after that. Like we accept the failure, we learn from it, and we discard it. And then, it's like, and again, it's so easy and it's so human for all of us to hang on to our failures. And I'll say it's healthy to remember them.
Mhm.
It's unhealthy to relive them. Does that
Okay.
make
Yeah.
sense? So you remember them because, oh, I rose above that. I learned from that. I'm better now. I'm stronger now than I was before. But it's not healthy to go, ugh, I got to carry this thing around with me. And because I had that failure, I'm now less than I was before. Not that at all. It's you learn from it, you rise above it, you move, you try to do better next time. And if you don't, you learn from it, try to do better next time. If you don't, you learn from it, you try to do better next time. It's like that. But you don't carry it with you as a scarring, disfiguring, just like a horrible thing that diminishes the rest of your life. You rise above it.
Perfect. Wow. Wow. I'm learning so much today.
Oh,
It's so
thank you.
great. So, okay. Today you live with a brain tumor, right?
No, right there.
So, please tell the audience about that. You realize that was the thing that was your illness in your childhood. So, how did that happen?
Well, I had that 4-year illness when I was little, and I wasn't growing, I wasn't developing, and they couldn't figure out why. I started skating and I started growing, started developing, so that was kind of miraculous. And then I stopped skating right after my son was born. Today's his 17th birthday. I stopped skating just to be a dad. I just figured it wasn't about me anymore, it was about him. So I started to have all these weird symptoms. And so I went into the hospital and they took a head scan and they found a brain tumor. And and my wife was arriving that day with my son, and I had to tell her, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And so when she got into the hotel room, she goes, "What's going on?" And I told her, and she just grabbed both of my hands and she started to pray, and it ignited my faith. It was like, I get it now. I totally understand what my role in all of this is. Where do you take your pain? Where do you take your suffering? Where do you take it straight to the Lord? So that one was they had to do a biopsy, and it was about a week after they found it. They had the only way to figure out how to treat it was to do a biopsy. So they did the biopsy, and it was a very risky procedure.
Oof.
Got through that okay, and they diagnosed the tumor cell, and they gave my wife a pamphlet on that tumor cell, and it says craniopharyngioma brain tumors are tumors a person is born with, and they're usually detected early in a child's life due to a lack of growth and development.
Oh my God.
But you think about it, you take a step back and you go, if they would have found that brain tumor in 1963 or 4, can you imagine? They didn't have the technology to radiate it like they
Have
do
any idea?
now.
Wow.
They didn't have proton. They would have cut my head open, and they would have gone in and
Oh,
taken it out, and my life would be completely different than it is today, right?
wow.
And they didn't, so in that way, I just thank the Lord every day that I was able to endure all those years and the symptoms went away, and I was the right height, the right build. There was not a muscle in my body that wasn't developed off the ice, right? Everything was on the ice. So there were so many blessings that were attached to my condition when I started skating. And And so brain tumor number 2 came, and that one was hard because one surgery became 9. It just, they nicked an artery, it became an aneurysm. That was hard. And then brain tumor number 3, there was that voice in the back of my head that just said, get strong.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
And I
Wow.
didn't know if it was physical, mental, emotional,
Yeah.
spiritual. So I go, okay, all the above. And so I've really just dedicated the last years, I guess, since they found it 4 years ago, I've just been healthier in my eating, healthier in the gym. I've been trying to work on my emotional health. I've been really trying to fortify myself intellectually and learn and grow. And spiritually, I've just been really trying to grow into the person that the Lord designed me to be. So it's this constant, striving to be healthier,
Yeah.
stronger than I've ever been before. And the brain tumor is doing this.
Yeah.
The last one was this, so we're keeping an eye on it. But I have a feeling, I don't know, I have faith that it's gone.
Wow.
I think that,
You're not planning on removing it, right?
there's options. Surgery isn't the best, especially what happened the last time. But I honestly think I'm taking it straight to the Lord. And if he wants me to endure something, I will. But I have a feeling something miraculous is going to happen. I just believe that.
Wow, that is so awesome. Okay, you know how there are illnesses that are psychosomatic, and sometimes the stress or worries cause some bad things in the body. Do you think that in your case happened the opposite because your positivity maybe began to cure you or making you feel better?
It's a chicken and egg thing, right?
Mhm.
Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I just learned I just paid attention. I was fascinated. Like when I went through my chemo, I wasn't worried about it or frightened about it. I was actually kind of fascinated by it. I wanted to know what that felt like. I wanted to understand what the experience was, so that, I don't know, I just felt like on the other side of it, maybe I could serve people in some way just by having that experience,
Mhm.
not just like in broad picture talking about something, but here's how it was, and here's how it went, and here's how I felt, and here's what I've learned, and here's what I want you to know. That was kind of like my thoughts, I guess, when I was going through it. I was fascinated more than I was scared of it or dreaded it. So, it's kind of that, it's like, where did that come from? It's like when my mom went through her cancer, she would say things like, oh, this chemotherapy, I finally found a way to lose all this weight. I mean, she turned everything upside down and taught me that it's okay to do that.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you just pay attention, you try to learn from other people, and especially those that you love and admire the most. And it's amazing what can happen.
What advice could you give to people in general, not only athletes, to overcome all these hard moments in a positive way?
Well, it comes to, what does a good decision look like? If you're a training athlete, is a good decision, I'm going to be late for my session. I'm just going to stay home and watch TV. Is that a good decision? Or is a good decision, I'm going to be late, but I'm going to take advantage of every second I have on the ice?
Exactly.
It's a good decision. I'm out with my friends. Oh, everybody's drinking. I got a session tomorrow at 6 a.m. Okay, maybe I'm just going to go to bed. Let them drink. It's like, what is going to put me in the best situation for success? And I put my hand on the stove. It's an American expression. Ow. 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 I've made a lot of stupid mistakes, and I made a lot of really horrific choices, and I live with those all the time. It's like I learn, right?
Yeah.
I can't undo anything I've done that makes me, kind of like, oh man, that wasn't really good.
Mhm.
But I learned from them, and the best I can do is move forward in faith, in understanding. It's that physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual. I move forward, right? And so, you know, I I I just try to encourage people to just keep going that way.
Mm.
And when you get to that fork in the road, which way's up and which way's down, right? And this is harder. This is much harder. But again, the view's better, For the
Yeah,
guys that made this
definitely.
choice, they're going like this, right? Going, how's the weather up there? Oh man, it's spectacular, But down here, not so much,
That's so good.
So
Yeah. Wow. Well, Scott, your story is so inspiring. I hope all these people can learn something from you because I definitely did.
no,
And thank
thank
you
you.
so much for sharing your story, your personal life, everything. I'm so happy. Really, really so inspired.
Oh, thank you. And I hope we don't, it's not 14 years till we do this again.
I hope not. Hopefully, we'll do something sooner.
Yes, I hope so.
Thank you so much. And
Uh,
thank you, everyone who watched this interview. Remember that this interview will be as a video in a couple of hours. Scott, I'll share this to you so you can share also. Thank you so much again for being here. It was an honor to have you here in
oh,
the show.
thank you. It's so good to see you. And please give my love to everybody in Mexico.
Sure, definitely. Thank you
All right.
so
All
much.
right.
Have a great
Bye-bye.
day. Gracias a todos. Cuídense mucho. Bye bye.